Hey guys, it's David Jackson Jr. I've got a confession to make, and that is that sometimes I tend to be a little bit tied to routine. So I like doing things in a specific way that I'm comfortable with. I know the format, I know the expectations, and I know the result. But today's talk is going to be a little bit different for a couple reasons. Number one, today's talk is going to have a title, and the title is 3 Types of Vitamin C. The second thing that's different about today is that today's talk is going to be broken into 3 different and distinct segments that incorporate a complete message. If you were there for one of my recent conversations, we talked about what makes you beautiful or what makes you feel beautiful to yourself. I bring that up today because one of the things that make me feel good about myself is the ability to communicate. I feel as though I communicate well and I'm comfortable doing it. But I've also learned over time and events that communication has its limits. And sometimes you can't always effectively get your point across, or the other person doesn't understand you. So we have to understand that communication, or in this case, one of the things that I think makes me beautiful, has limits. Beyond that, there's one other thing I'd like to say about today's presentation, and that is that it's intensely personal to me. So, otherwise, it means a lot, or in other words, it means a lot. One of the challenges that I have in filming is that my assistant Layla always tells me, nobody's expecting you to be perfect. If you run into a snag or if you forget something, just work through it and keep talking. While that's not a message that I receive easily at any time, that's particularly true about today's talk, because today's talk is very personal for me, and I'll share some of the reason why as we move along. But let's get started. The grass is always greener on the other side, but it's twice as hard to cut. Practice makes perfect. Early to bed, early to rise makes a man or woman healthy, wealthy, and wise. What do those 3 seemingly different statements have in common? Beside the fact that you've probably all heard them before, they're what are commonly referred to as cliches. And much of our life is spent hearing cliches, working under the context of cliches, or sometimes even aspiring to be a part of a cliche ourselves. What are cliches? Well, if you think about life as a journey, I want you to think about a cliche as a mini GPS unit. So in other words, let's say that you're at a party and it's late at night and you know that you have something important to do in the morning, and you look at your watch and you say, I'm having such a great time, I don't want to leave, but at the same time, I know that I've got that performance or that project tomorrow. Then early to bed, early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise might come into your mind and give you the direction and the discipline to get up, go home, and get the rest that you're going to need for the project tomorrow. But more importantly than that, one of the other things that I want you to understand about cliches is this. Just because something is a cliche does not mean that it's not true. Now that wasn't a double negative. Let me repeat it for you. Just because something is a cliche does not mean that it's not true. Okay. I don't know of an exact cliche for this one, but there's one thing that I see all of the time that I always construed to be a cliche. And that is, whenever you see someone make a big mistake or they screw up in life, the very next thing that you hear is when they say, oh my God, that was a horrible mistake. It was the worst thing I've ever done, but I've never learned such valuable lessons in my life. I always viewed that as a cop-out. I really did. And whenever you see a celebrity do something wrong, or a politician, or an athlete, it's what you always hear. But back to the point that I made a few minutes ago, just because it's a cliche doesn't mean that it's true. And something happened in my own life recently, something deeply personal, that's taught me to know that it is true that you learn from crises or bad situations. But we're going to talk about that a little bit more in segments 2 and 3 of 3 Types of Vitamin C. Thanks, guys. Hold on. Part 2's coming.